Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here at the Tustin Area Historical Museum in Tustin, California. I'm excited. I'm honored and privileged, feel privileged to do a presentation here today. I call this particular presentation On Earth as It Is in Heaven because it deals with a man whose outlandish claim to fame was claimed that he could rise from the dead in 3 days, just like Jesus. Needless to say, he lost some converts that day. He's one of the most tragic characters in California history. His name is William Monet. He was not as beloved as some of the other characters I'm going to talk about today. And he's not as accomplished as William B. Ide, and he was probably not as loved as the Emperor Norton. But he was equally intrepid in an era where sanity took a backseat to intrepidness. So let's look a little bit. Let's look at William Monet. For the love of God, let me out, the old man screamed as he lay in the coffin, while the non-believers stood and laughed. William attempted to escape the coffin being lowered in the ground, while the non-believers yelled and reminded William that the third day of resurrection had not yet arrived. This is the level of lunacy that we are dealing with when we talk about William Monet. This is how I wanted to start the presentation, so you can get a greater understanding of the man and his faith and his beliefs. This is the only picture we have of William Monet, and it's not really a photograph, it's a sketch. But this is the only one you will ever find of him. So let's just take a closer look at William Monet. He arrived to New York, according to the New York arriving passenger and crew list. And this included Castle Garden and Ellis Island from 1820 to 1957. William was born in Scotland around 1804. Subsequent documents would contradict his birth date, but that's what we have for that particular document. In Scotland, William's father was a gardener and his mother was a servant. His father died when he was 1 year of age. At age 7, he began to study natural history and later studied philosophy, law, medicine, and theology. In 1819, he apprenticed himself as a paper manufacturer due to his family poverty. And we know all of this because of William Monet. William Monet wrote a lot about this later on in his life, and that's what he says. So he left Scotland in 1824. Monet stated that he arrived in America around 1825. He arrived on a ship called the Robert Edwards, October 3rd, 1829. In 1837, he marries Isabella Rada, a Mexican citizen, and marriage records indicate that he was 30 years old at the time, which would have put his birth around 1807. So there's some discrepancy about how old he was when he came to America. He arrived in California between 1840 and 1843 when Jesus told him to come to California when he was standing on a corner of New York City. Oddly enough, he came to California via Mexico City and Sonora. The Los Angeles Directory of 1860 and the 1860 United States Census indicates that William was a practicing physician, even though he had no formal training. He bragged that he had treated over 5,000 patients and only 5 had died in his care. And he boasted about writing 2 full-length medical books with color illustrations, but apparently they were never published. So, of course, he told us this. Eventually, the good doctor left the profession after complaints from other legitimate doctors who claimed that he was not treating patients with standard medical care. There was a cholera pandemic, and during the time that he was treating people, and he was not apparently treating people the correct way. So that's why some of the other doctors came around and said that he was not a good doctor. But William Monet resided in El Pueblo de la Reina de Los Angeles, the town of the Queen of Angels, from around 1840 to 1843. A story that William Monet spoke about, and I love this story, a story that he spoke about quite often later on in life, and he boasted about it. He says that it was the biggest thing in his life, basically. He boasted that he was an acclaimed theologian and that he had bested, through debate, many friars in Sonora, Mexico. William Monet stated he openly and publicly debated 7 friars in Sonora for over 5 years, and he drove the Franciscan padres to defeat exile, sanity, and even death. And apparently he debated them in a public square, and they were so roundly defeated that they quit their faith and left their vocation. He considered this one of his greatest accomplishments. It's a little far-fetched, I think, but Who knows? Anyway, I put this question up here, and it's, was William Monet an outlaw or an opportunist? It's hard to think that he would be either or. I think he's somewhere probably in the middle. But I put this question up so as we move through his story, you may get an opinion, a little bit clearer opinion about who he is. William lived in California during the time of the Bear Flag Revolt. In 1846, during the Bear Flag Revolt, he was taken prisoner by General Stephen Watts Kearny, who was leading a detachment of 100 U.S. dragoons to support the American California rebels. General Kearny confiscated and destroyed William's large collection of California maps, which William Monet estimated to be worth as much as $250,000 at the time. I think that's a little high, but William did try to reclaim compensation, but his claim was denied by the U.S. government. After he left medicine, he went back to theology, and he claimed to have written a massive theological book entitled The Church of Rome Reform. But similarly, like his medical book, his theology book was never published. But there was a breakthrough. In 1854, William finally publishes a book, the very first book published in Los Angeles, called The Reform of the New Testament Church, Reforma de la Iglesia del Nuevo Testamento. It's a 22-page book, small little book. It's only 22 pages, and on one side it was in English, and the other side was in Spanish. And remember, his wife was from Mexico, so he spoke Spanish. So it is an extremely, extremely rare book, and there are only 2 known copies in existence. One is held at the San Marino Huntington Library, and the other is held at UCLA's Special Collection Archives. It's about this time that his chicanery really accelerated. In 1855, William Monet starts the first religious sect in California called the Reformed New Testament Church of Los Angeles. This is the time that he claimed he could arise from the dead after 3 days, just like Jesus. After being lowered in the ground, he kicked his way out. He climbed out of the grave, and apparently the spectators amused and told him he didn't have the faith to last 3 minutes, let alone 3 days. His quackery knew no bounds as he continued to publish his rants, his ramblings, including supporting the theory the inside of the earth was an ocean created by the North Pole that sucked in the seawater. When the local school burned down, he rented out his home, and it would later be called the Monayan Institute. Despite all of his writings, tomfoolery, swindling, he died a pauper and penniless. And ironically, when he was a physician, there was a 12-year-old boy named Dan Mulock who was gored by a boar. And it was William Monet who assisted him back to health. Now, the 12-year-old boy's father was named William Mulock. He remembered William Monet fondly and allowed William Monet to be buried in the family plot in San Gabriel. Here is a photo of the family of where William Monet is buried in San Gabriel. He died in 1881. No documents show the exact date of his death. When I went and I took this photograph, I believe this is a photograph that I took. When I went to the curator of the cemetery, they looked in their records, and there was no record that indicated the exact date of death. They only know that he died in 1881. So today, William Monet is buried in San Gabriel Cemetery with many other notables, such as Laura Scudder, Jay Johnstone of the Dodgers, Merlin Olsen, and Elmer Dills. And actually, William Nurr, who is the inventor of the hula hoop, frisbee, a slip and slide, and silly string, he is also buried there. General George Patton has a family plot at the cemetery with a cenotaph at the cemetery. His wife, his mom, his dad are all buried there. A sad coda to the William Monet story is that of Dr. William B. Rice. Dr. William B. Rice was a 28-year-old scholar and an editor of the Los Angeles Star who wrote the only known biography of William Monet called William Monet, a Southern California Savant. I have a copy. There were only 150 copies ever published of this book. And while the book was being published, it was out at the publisher. While it was being published, Dr. Rice had finished the book. It was at the publishers. He was so excited that he and his friend, Dr. Clyde Nelson, they were avid rock climbers. They decided to go on a trip to the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. Well, shortly after they went rock climbing, they tragically died doing what they loved to do. And in a really strange twist, many years earlier, William B. Rice told his wife if he should ever lose his life in pursuit of what he loves, he told his wife to bury him near the spot where he died. So, being the dutiful wife and respecting Dr. William Rice's request, he is now buried not far overlooking the Grand Tetons of nearby Jackson, Wyoming. So that concludes this presentation about William Monet. I hope you liked it. I loved giving it. And come on down to Tustin Area Historical Museum, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.